Um, I'm going to talk about the paramitas to follow on with what Roshi Shinko just said. And the fourth paramita is a virya paramita, which means effort or zeal or vitality. And Shishin Roshi analyzed the etymology of virya as it made its way from Sanskrit to Chinese to Japanese and came up with this powerful definition. Virya is the advancement of single-minded spiritual vigor. When you nurture single-minded spiritual vigor, nothing can stop it. Not even a speeding train. You're like Superman. So virya is not only the intention to realize the Buddha way, but the energy is always there to realize that intention. When we make the determination to follow the Buddha way, or to save the earth and all beings, the energy to accomplish that is there when you make the commitment to yourself. Why? Because it's not an ego commitment. It's a transcendent commitment, because it transcends subject and object. Virya is the transcendent energy that will help you to accomplish your vows. In the koan we've been discussing, a plain rice cake transforms into a bean jam cake. Wow, how's that possible? Isn't that what we've been talking about when we try to explain how the energy of Prajnaparamita works? We said Dana Paramita and Patience Paramita work together. When we perform a generous act arising from Dana Paramita, there's no expectation or attachment to an idea that we'll get something back in return or something out of it. It's just giving in the absence of subject and object and in the absence of time and space. That kind of action from the heart manifests in itself a special kind of power that makes it beneficial to all beings. A rice cake from the hands of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva turns into a bean jam cake. But of course, all the paramitas are working together here. They're inseparable. Just wanted to mention this farm rice cake. It's kind of plain and doesn't have a lot of taste to it, but a bean jam cake, it's very delicious. When I was in Japan, they had vendors on the street that sold them. They made them. They look like almost like these little waffle irons. They would put the dough on the bottom, and then they would put in a scoop of this bean jam. It's kind of in the middle, and then put another dough on the top, and then fold it over and cook it, and then hand it out to you really warm. If you're not careful, if you bite into it quickly, you burn the roof of your mouth. But that's what Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva did. She brought money for a rice farm cake. When she released it, it transformed into a bean jam cake. So virya paramita is the vigor of practice that motivates Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. The Sila Paramita is the natural manifestation of the enlightened heart mind. The Sila are the precepts. And Samadhi Paramita is the dwelling undisturbed in the Dharma of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. Regarding the Samadhi Paramita, Dogen Zenji said, Dwelling in the Dharma undisturbed is what is called samadhi. Dwelling in the Dharma undisturbed. So what prevents us from dwelling in the Dharma undisturbed? We know the answer. It's our attachment to the idea of self, based on a disconnection from the suffering of all beings. We put a wedge between ourselves, the ecosystem, and the rest of humanity. The Buddha said, when you students of the way unify your minds, the mind is in samadhi. When you gain samadhi, the mind is not scattered. For the sake of the planet and all beings, cultivate samadhi well, and then spread it everywhere. I like the phrase from the Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch, where he says, samadhi itself is a substance of wisdom, and wisdom itself is the functioning of samadhi. Samadhi itself is a substance of wisdom. When you sit in samadhi, realize samadhi, unify the mind, there are no thoughts for or against, not bringing one side up opposed to the other. That state is a state of deep concentration. There's a certain vitality in it, but it doesn't function of itself. The way it functions is through wisdom. Samadhi is the substance of wisdom. In other words, without samadhi, wisdom does not manifest. And without wisdom, samadhi does not function. I want to encourage you to develop samadhi. See the rising and falling of your thoughts. Zazen is nothing more than looking into your own heart mind and opening to it. One Zen master, Baswi, said, it's better to look into your own mind devotedly than to read and recite sutras and dharanis every day for countless years. In other words, get right to the source. Experience the nature of your own heart-mind. The key to practice is to develop samadhi and maintain it in all activities. Don't limit practice just to the cushion. Samadhi and samu might even be more important. Try to maintain it wherever you are and whatever you're doing. Sila Paramita is also called transcendent discipline. And they arise from prajna wisdom and represent the way that prajna wisdom manifests enlightened actions. We call that way kai, or the bodhisattva precepts. Jukai means to receive the precepts, and the sila are the discipline or the precepts. We have a koan in our first 100 miscellaneous koans. In the Mahaprajna expounded by Manjushri Bodhisattva, it says, an ascetic who is pure and undefiled will not enter nirvana. A monk who breaks the precepts will not fall into hell. How do you understand that? Now, drop all your dualistic thoughts. Well, just drop them. Now, how do you understand it? And how do we apply this paramita, Sila Paramita, to the global crisis? Nicole Schwab is the coordinator of the platform to accelerate nature-based solutions for the World Economic Forum. and she's a participant in the Trillion Tree Project. She's a speaker for Humanity Rising, which Roshi and I listened to the other day, and we encourage you to check out Humanity Rising. They have some incredible speakers who have had a tremendous amount of experience in the area of the environment and ecology and how to maintain it.
And how positive they are.
Hmm?
And how positive and optimistic.
Yeah, and they're all very, Roshi said they're all very positive and optimistic. They're not predicting doom. They're just saying, this is what we can do.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So she said, we're always thinking about how we're going to fit sustainability into our economic agenda. What if we turn it around and conceive ourselves as a restorative species that restores, that regenerates? The dream that guides me is that of a restorative species. We can conceive of ourselves as species that are not depleting the environment, which does not need more than one planet to survive. This is the time and the space to restore the ecosystem. We're really in a crisis of major proportions. We have 1 million species that are at the risk of extinction. Over the last 50 years, 70% of the vertebrates have disappeared. 90% of the large fish have disappeared. Sharks, tuna, spearfish, and so forth. We're destroying rainforests at the rate of 1 football field per minute. So while we've been talking here, that's several acres. We have altered 3/4 of the land surface on the planet. We have a huge crisis in terms of fertile soil, topsoil, pollinators, insect species are collapsing. Everywhere we look, there's a crisis, but somehow that crisis has not sunk into our psyches yet. It's interesting to make a parallel with what happened with COVID-19, because experts have been warning for a long time of the risks of a pandemic. And yet, in spite of all of this, we were unprepared. And it affected the supply chain, sometimes in horrible ways. For example, millions of pigs were killed and dumped because the slaughterhouses were closed due to the virus. That's really atrocious. The same thing has happened with other crops, because they couldn't get them to the markets, or they couldn't get them harvested. They were just rotted in the fields, or they were dumped. And yet we have people, who are below the poverty line, don't have enough to eat. So there's a big disconnect there. So how can we do this? How could our humanity have created a system like this? We have a crisis. We have a problem. We haven't completely internalized it to take stock of it. We have to wake up. We have to change the way we're operating at all levels. We have to wake up. Human health is a mirror image of our planetary health, and both go hand in hand. We can't address one without the other. This year, we have an opportunity to make a shift on a deeper level. Why at a deeper level? Because we can work on all these things we had mentioned before, but ultimately, it's about how we position ourselves. Do we continue to place money at the center of our activities, or do we place life? But not only human life, but all of the life forms on the earth at the center of our lives. In our book, The Great Heart Way, Roshi and I wrote, it's very helpful to ask your body directly how you can heal your pain. Restrain yourself from using your brain and your analytical faculties to provide an answer. Allow the answer to emerge from your body. Stay a while in the unknown. By trusting this process, you're trusting your inner wisdom. It is the inner treasure with which we are all endowed. In the Sutra of 42 sections, the Buddha said, if you endeavor to embrace the way, through much learning, the way will not be understood. If you observe the way with simplicity of heart, great indeed is the way. Master Hakuin made a Zen joke about prajna. It's kind of, this joke is what we call praise by slander. It's about prajna from the first line of the Heart Sutra, which says, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, doing deep prajna paramita, clearly saw emptiness of the five conditions. So Hakuin wrote, bah, gouging out healthy flesh and creating open wounds. How strange this prajna of hers. Just what is it like? Deep, shallow, like river water? Can you tell me what kind of prajna has deep and shallow? I'm afraid that it is a case of mistaken identity, confusing the pheasant with a phoenix. So Hakuin's trying to wake us up. But without prajna, there would be no Buddha way. All of the paramitas are contained within prajna. Dana, giving, shanti, patience, virya, effort, sila, precepts, and samadhi, deep concentration. When we realize prajna, then all the paramitas become deeper, and in turn deepen our experience and the realization of prajna. All the paramitas work together like the wheel of dharma. The waters of dharma turn the water wheel. Waters of samadhi, the essence of wisdom. The enlightened actions, Sila Paramita. The generous deeds, Dana Paramita. No time frame is given. No time frame is given. Shanti, or patience, Paramita, and Virya Paramita, which gives us the energetic strength to accomplish the Buddha way and be of service to all beings on the planet and the natural world.
Next is the appreciatory verse. This verse sounds like the functioning of prajna. Leaving the gate, Roshi is gonna pronounce this word for me.
Spurring.
Spurring up the horse, sweep away the comet. The smoke of dust of 10,000 lands of itself clears. In the 12 sense fields, trivial influences are forgotten. The 3,000 worlds are illuminated with pure bright light. The verse says, the 3,000 worlds are illuminated with pure bright light. That light of the billion universes shines through reflections and echoes. If we don't attach to reflections and echoes, then the light is released. In other words, each one of us is that pure bright light. How can we let it shine freely? How could you say, far beyond the senses, the pure light shines by itself? That's worth repeating. Far beyond the senses, the pure light shines by itself. It does not depend upon shapes and sounds. But if your 12 sense fields, which are the six senses and the sixth sense consciousness, suddenly extend throughout the whole universe, what then? If your consciousness extends through the whole universe, then what? I thought it was a farm rice cake, but it is a bean jam cake. Allow your light to manifest in the 10 directions. That is Prajna Paramita.
Thank you, everyone. We have one more day of practice, so please manifest it in the 10 directions. And if you're a rice cake, be a rice cake. If you're a bean jam cake, be a bean jam cake.
Numberless creations I vow to receive, inexhaustible delusions I vow to dissolve, omnipresent Dharma gates I vow to experience, unsurpassable enlightened way I vow to manifest. Numberless creations I vow to receive, inexhaustible delusions I vow to dissolve, omnipresent Dharma gates I vow to experience, unsurpassable enlightened way I vow to manifest. Numberless creations I vow to receive, inexhaustible delusions I vow to dissolve, omnipresent Dharma gates I vow to experience, unsurpassable enlightened way I vow to manifest.
We do the dedication first,
The metta prayer.
the metta prayer.
I'd like to do the metta prayer one time.
What do
Okay,
you mean? We do
let's
one
go.
time or 3 times?
You know, makes me happy.
They do it
Okay.
usually before the 4 vows.
May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be at ease. And for the sake of all beings, may we all be realized.
Please meet at 11 for Zazen.